The Los Angeles Sun beat down on a Hollywood tow yard. A foul odor filled the air. A trunk was forced open. And just like that, the music industry's darkest, most gruesome secret was unzipped from a black bag. Today, we are diving into exactly what the autopsy in the D4vd case just exposed.
It is, honestly, a completely chilling reality.
Join Jordan and Jamie as they uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals. From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
And for this deep dive, our mission is really to lay out the raw facts of a story that has just completely paralyzed the entertainment world.
Right. We are unpacking the newly unsealed and, frankly, horrifying autopsy report of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. We're breaking down the arrest of viral pop star D4d, whose legal name is David Burke, along with the chilling digital evidence that led to his capture.
Yeah, and the massive legal gamble that's unfolding right now. Because when you look at a case with this much intense media scrutiny, and I mean a staggering amount of information dropping just today, April 22, 2026, it's hard to even separate the facts from the internet rumors.
Exactly. So where do we even begin?
You have to start right where the investigation started, which is a physical timeline that is honestly almost impossible to comprehend.
Yeah.
To truly understand the gravity of this newly unsealed autopsy, you really have to look at how this young girl was found. Back in late July of 2025, a Tesla was simply abandoned on Bluebird Avenue in the Hollywood Hills.
Just left there, on the straw.
Just sat there. It collected dust through the blazing peak of a Southern California summer. Finally, in late August, it gets ticketed for violating a 72-hour parking ordinance.
Right, which is pretty standard for LA.
Exactly. Then on September 3rd, it is formally impounded. And it wasn't until 5 days after that when a tow yard worker noticed a distinct foul odor that anyone actually looked inside.
And that leads right to the front trunk of that Tesla. The details from the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Office are they're incredibly difficult to hear, but they paint a vivid picture of exactly what this young girl endured.
It's a horrific scene.
LAPD detectives found the severely decomposed body of Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Her remains were discovered in 2 separate bags. The official cause of death was ruled as multiple penetrating injuries, specifically sharp force wounds to her torso that critically damaged her liver and her ribs.
Yeah.
And obviously, the manner of death is officially ruled a homicide.
Right, and what complicated the initial investigation so much was the condition of the remains. I mean, the medical examiner noted bilateral dismemberment of the upper and lower extremities.
It's just sickening to even think about.
Parts of her arms and legs were missing. 2 of her fingers were missing. Because she was likely in that trunk for months, the advanced decomposition made standard identification nearly impossible at first.
But they did eventually find identifying markers.
Yeah, they did. She was wearing a tube top that appeared to have been deliberately cut in 3 separate places. She had braces on her teeth, and she had a very specific tattoo on the inside of one of her fingers that just read the word shh.
Wow. And those unique identifiers became absolutely critical for the detectives.
Exactly.
I do want to touch on the toxicology report, too, because when the initial headlines broke, there was a lot of confusion online. The report showed a low level of alcohol, which initially made me think, okay, maybe she had been drinking.
Right. A lot of people jumped to that conclusion.
But the medical examiner actually attributed that to post-mortem chemical changes.
Yeah, and that is a fascinating, albeit super grim, biological reality. As a body decomposes, the bacteria involved in that process naturally produce ethanol.
Oh, wow. So it's basically the body creating its own alcohol that breaks down.
Exactly. So investigators can't definitively say she consumed any alcohol before her death.
But the report also noted a presumptive positive for benzodiazepines, methamphetamines, and MDMA.
Yeah, and it's super important to clarify what presumptive positive actually means in this context, because it gets misconstrued as a hard fact all the time.
Right. People see that and assume it's set in stone.
Exactly. A presumptive test is just an initial broad-spectrum screening. It flags the possible presence of a substance, but it's not a definitive, confirmed lab result. Given the state of the remains, drawing concrete conclusions from a preliminary toxicology screen is incredibly difficult.
You hear those details, and it stops being a headline, It becomes a visceral nightmare. You have a 14-year-old girl locked in the trunk of a car on a sunny Los Angeles street for months. And while she is sitting in that tow yard, the owner of that car is out on a national music tour.
Performing for thousands of screaming fans.
Exactly. It's chilling. But that leads directly to the massive clash we saw behind the scenes regarding this very autopsy report. Because I want to dig into the mechanics of the investigation here. The Los Angeles Police Department fought tooth and nail to keep this autopsy sealed from the public.
They did. They placed a strict security hold on it back in November.
And when you look at it from the outside, it feels eerily similar to, like, classic Hollywood fixers trying to bury a scandal. Why did the police fight so incredibly hard to keep the public in the dark about a murdered child?
Well, it wasn't actually about burying a scandal. It was about protecting a highly sensitive investigative strategy. LAPD Detective Joshua Byers of the Robbery Homicide Division, he filed court declarations arguing that releasing these gruesome details could basically endanger their entire case.
Okay, but how?
Detectives use a technique called the holdback theory.
How does that actually work in practice, like in an interrogation room?
So if the public, and more importantly the suspect, doesn't know the specifics, the police have a massive tactical advantage. If the media doesn't know about the cut tube top or the missing fingers or the exact nature of the liver lacerations, the police can feed false or vague details to a suspect.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so if the suspect corrects them with the true, unpublished facts, they've just handed the police a confession. You also use holdback evidence to weed out false confessions from people just seeking attention, or to leverage non-public facts against accomplices they think might have helped dispose of the body.
That makes sense. But the medical examiner, Dr. Ode Ukpo, aggressively fought back against the LAPD on this. He argued that security holds are virtually unheard of in other counties and don't actually improve legal outcomes.
Right.
He framed it as a matter of social justice and basic humanity, arguing that a grieving family shouldn't have to wait months to find out what happened to their daughter. And ultimately, Dr. Ukso won that battle when prosecutors finally agreed to unseal the report this week.
It's a pretty rare victory for public transparency in a high-profile, ongoing murder investigation.
It really is. But the gruesome details of the autopsy are only the beginning. Wait till you hear the twisted motive prosecutors claim was behind it all. If you're captivated by the dark truths behind Hollywood's brightest stars, make sure you're subscribed. We've got even crazier twists coming up.
The transition from the discovery of the body to the actual arrest is where the legal stakes reach their absolute peak. I mean, we are talking about a 21-year-old viral sensation who is now facing the possibility of the death penalty for allegedly choosing his career over a young girl's life.
For those who might not be familiar with his music, let's establish exactly who David Burke, or D4vd, was right before this arrest. He had this meteoric rise to fame. He was a TikTok viral star who completely exploded in 2022 with a hit song called Romantic Homicide.
Which is an incredibly dark title given the circumstances.
Seriously, it peaked at number 4 on Billboard's Hot Rock and Alternative Songs chart. He cultivated this incredibly popular aesthetic of teenage heartbreak and moody, lo-fi indie pop.
And when you overlay the timeline of his soaring career milestones with the timeline of this crime, it is profoundly disturbing. Prosecutors estimate that Celeste was murdered on or around April 23, 2025.
Okay.
Exactly 2 days later, on April 25th, Burke dropped his highly anticipated debut full-length album, Withered.
Just think about that timeline. You have an artist going through the press junkets, doing interviews, celebrating a major label album debut, all while allegedly harboring this horrific secret in the trunk of a car.
Yeah.
It really begs the question of what the people around him, his managers, his label, his entourage, actually saw, or perhaps chose not to see.
It absolutely forces a reckoning with the machinery of fame. And that machinery came to a grinding halt on April 16th, 2026. Heavily armed LAPD robbery homicide detectives descended on a home on Marmont Avenue in Los Angeles. They arrested Burke without resistance.
And the charges filed by Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hochman are staggering. He is charged with first-degree murder, lewd and lascivious acts with a person under 14 years old, and mutilating a dead body.
Right.
But it's the special circumstances attached to the murder charge that completely change the trajectory of this trial, don't they?
Absolutely. In California law, first-degree murder alone carries a heavy sentence, usually 25 years to life. But when prosecutors attach special circumstances, it shifts the entire legal landscape.
Because it means the crime was elevated somehow.
Exactly. It means the state believes the murder was particularly heinous or calculated. In this case, they filed 3 specific special circumstances against Burke: lying in wait, committing the crime for financial gain, and murdering a witness.
Wow.
If convicted of these, Burke is facing a mandatory minimum of life in prison without the possibility of parole or the death penalty.
I really want to break down that alleged motive, because
Mhm.
when you say a murder was committed for financial gain, most people immediately picture like a life insurance payout or a robbery gone wrong. But that's not what prosecutors are alleging here.
No, it's far more insidious than that. The district attorney's theory of financial gain is tied directly to Burke's livelihood and his public image.
Right.
Prosecutors allege that Burke engaged in a repeated sexual relationship with Celeste when she was just 13 years old. The motive, according to the state, is that she threatened to expose his criminal conduct.
And doing so would have utterly devastated his rising, incredibly lucrative music career. So the state's theory is that to silence her, to permanently eliminate a witness to his own alleged statutory crimes, and to protect his future earnings in the music industry, he allegedly murdered her with a sharp instrument.
Yeah, prosecutors are painting a picture of a calculating predator. If these allegations hold true in court, it means he dismembered a child to protect his record sales.
It forces us to question how much we actually know about the figures we elevate to stardom based on 15-second viral video clips. And that's not even the wildest part. Later in this deep dive, we'll talk about the chilling clues the suspect may have left behind in his own music.
Yeah, because while the LAPD was relying on physical forensics in that Hollywood tow yard, internet sleuths were unearthing a completely different kind of evidence. A digital footprint that had been hiding in plain sight for months.
We have to discuss the unreleased 2023 song by D4vd that reportedly surfaced online titled simply Celeste.
Yeah, this part is wild.
I am going to read these lyrics directly from the sources we gathered, because they are haunting. The song goes, "Oh, Celeste, the girl with my name tattooed on her chest. Smell her on my clothes like cigarettes. I hear her voice each time I take a breath. I'm obsessed."
It's so specific.
And perhaps the most disturbing line in the nearly 4-minute track is, "I want to make Cupid suicidal."
If you connect those lyrics to the established facts of the investigation, the parallels are chilling. The song references the name Celeste. It explicitly references the girl having his name tattooed on her.
Right.
And if we look back at what Celeste's mother told reporters, she confirmed that her daughter had a boyfriend named David, and she explicitly stated that the two of them had matching tattoos.
It raises an incredibly dark question. Did a pop star leave a literal confession, or at least a psychological map, of his obsession, hidden in a leaked demo track?
It's a compelling narrative for the public, for sure, but whether or not those lyrics are actually admissible in a courtroom is a massive legal hurdle.
Why is that?
Well, California actually passed the Decriminalizing Artistic Expression Act in 2022. It restricts when an artist's creative work, like song lyrics, can be used as evidence in a criminal case, specifically to prevent racial bias and the criminalization of art.
Oh.
So prosecutors will have to prove to a judge that the lyrics hold specific factual relevance to the crime, rather than just being edgy artistic expression.
So regardless of what a judge decides, in the court of public opinion and within the music industry itself, those lyrics, combined with the severe charges, were basically the final nail in the coffin.
Oh, absolutely.
The industry's reaction has been swift and severe. They are quietly but forcefully erasing his digital existence. Kali Uchis pulled a collaborative track called Crashing from all streaming services, publicly stating, "He is not my friend." Laufey quietly pulled their song, "This Is How It Feels." Even the video game publisher EA Sports scrubbed his music entirely from the soundtrack of Madden NFL 26.
It is a complete institutional distancing. His label halted all promotion of his album. He went from headlining tours to being a complete pariah overnight.
But amidst all this noise, the industry panic, the internet sleuthing, the legal theorizing, there is a family whose entire world has been shattered. Celeste's parents, Jesus Rivas and Mercedes Martinez, released a heartbreaking statement through their lawyer, Patrick Steinfeld.
Yeah, that statement was tough to read.
They couldn't even speak outside the courthouse because of a bomb threat and an aggressive media swarm, which is just tragic on top of tragedy. But they wanted the world to know who their daughter actually was, beyond being just a name in a police report.
It's so important to ground the discussion in that reality.
They said, "Celeste was a beautiful, strong girl who loved to sing and dance. Every Friday night was movie night, and we spent wonderful times together. We love her very much, and she always told us that she loved us. We miss her deeply. All we want is justice for Celeste."
Amidst the talk of terabytes of evidence and special circumstances, that statement reminds you that a family is missing their child.
Which brings us to the upcoming courtroom showdown, and the defense strategy that has legal experts completely stunned. Burke has pleaded not guilty to all charges, and the judge denied him bail. But his defense attorney, Blair Burke, who is a very high-profile, aggressive celebrity lawyer, has demanded an immediate preliminary hearing within 10 days.
What's fascinating here is the sheer audacity of this legal strategy. Under California law, a defendant is entitled to an evidentiary hearing within 10 court days of their arraignment.
Right?
However, defense attorneys will almost always waive that right.
Right.
They waive it to give themselves months, sometimes years, to review evidence, depose witnesses, and build a case. But here, Burke is demanding the hearing immediately.
So help me understand the mechanics of this. Why rush the courtroom showdown? The lead prosecutor, Beth Silverman, stated on the record that the district attorney's office has 40 terabytes of evidence against him. Just for context, 40 terabytes is a massive amount of data. That's roughly 10,000 feature-length movies worth of text messages, cell site data, video, and audio. Why on earth would the defense want to sprint into a hearing against a digital mountain of that size?
Because it is essentially a legal denial of service attack. The defense knows that when a case involves 40 terabytes of digital evidence, complex DNA analysis, and intricate timelines, organizing that into a coherent, presentable format takes prosecutors months.
Oh, I see.
By demanding the preliminary hearing in 10 days, the defense is hoping the state simply isn't prepared. They're forcing the prosecution to find a needle in a digital haystack before the clock runs out.
Wow. So they are betting that the sheer volume of the prosecution's own evidence is actually their greatest weakness on a tight timeline?
Exactly. It's a high-stakes game of legal chicken. If the district attorney cannot present their key witnesses or synthesize enough of that evidence quickly enough to prove probable cause to a judge, the case could theoretically be dismissed right there.
That's insane.
The defense team has stated publicly that they believe the actual evidence will show Burke did not murder Celeste. They are challenging the state to put their cards on the table immediately or fold entirely.
Stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens when this high-stakes legal gamble plays out and this case actually goes to trial.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a broader question to mull over. When we look at the culture of the modern music industry, we see artists whose entire brands are built on dark, sometimes violently themed imagery. Burke's breakout hit was literally titled Romantic Homicide. His music videos featured people being stuffed into the trunks of cars. Do we, as a society, collectively ignore screaming red flags because we brush them off as just art or edgy marketing until it is far too late? We have to ask ourselves, does the massive profit-driven machinery of fame intentionally protect rising stars, turning a blind eye to predatory behavior at the ultimate expense of vulnerable young fans like Celeste?
You've been listening to Starscope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.